Hello there, Seraph 17 once again. This is my late E3 coverage, and we have finally reached the megalithic Sony press conference. Wow. So this is really interesting, because if you look at the climate of this current generation, Sony are winning. Sony have been winning for a long time, and they know they're winning. This can lead to one of two things. It can lead to them striving to push even further, to make that separation greater, and make their reign all the more supreme. Or they can get lazier, rest on their laurels, and then that gulf will gradually close, and they could potentially lose an advantage. I have absolutely no idea which of those paths will prove to be true, but I believe that how Sony approached this press conference was pretty ghastly. And I'll tell you why. At the beginning, there was this wonderful build-up of the guy who did the music for The Last of Us doing an inevitable Last of Us 2 reveal. And I say reveal, which is the wrong word, because we've already seen it. And the language that the guy used before he introduced him, or after he introduced him, I forget which way it went, but you know the guy who I think is the president of Sony, he's the guy who comes out, he always speaks well, I like him, he's always kind of got that arrogant swagger to him, because he knows they're winning, and winning deservedly so. The way he carried himself and the language he used immediately put me on the back foot and made me really tentative towards what was going to happen and what I was going to see. Because the way he conveyed his point and the points that he was saying did not instill confidence in me at all. The way he conducted himself said, we're going to focus on existing titles you've already seen because we have nothing else to show. So don't get too excited about the idea of tons of new IPs, because I think Microsoft said they showed 56 new things and there was like one new thing and the rest were full of shit. But that's a big number that people attach and go, oh my god, 56 new things, what's Sony going to do? So he immediately quelled this idea that they were going to show nothing but new games, and instead they wanted to focus on this cool shit that was coming. But his body language and the words he used, I really think he undersold the quality and the importance of what Sony has. And it was this weird defeatist kind of feeling that I got from it. I don't know if any of you guys got this, but I really did. It was weird. It was this strange thing. And then Last of Us plays, and of course Last of Us 2 is going to be a fantastic game, and it looks ridiculous, but I feel like a lot of it's bullshit, and I'll talk about that when I get to the video that I'm going to make for this. So Last of Us, Ellie's doing a fucking whatever Ellie does, she's kissing a chick at the party, because of course the one thing that I care more about in the post-apocalyptic is a lesbian drama, and all this other stuff that the first game was sorely lacking, and of course I wanted more of that. Then there's a bunch of violence, and she's been hunted, and she can go prone, and she can jump and shit, and there's all this different dynamic to the movement, and the AI looks amazing, but it did in the first game, and then when it came out they were retards, and it's all of this fantastic stuff. Naughty Dog, oh my god, it's going to be great, the beauty, fantastic, she's in the wall, she's in the leaves, it's awesome. And then they have an intermission. So not only do we start by the least confident sales pitch I've ever had, but then they show us something we've already seen, and then there's an intermission while they move stages. And I have absolutely no idea why they did this. They had like a 15-minute chunk where I think they were moving the audience to the actual place where everything was going to be, and all I could think the entire time is, why the fuck would you build up to a point and then completely lose your audience? So not only do they start by saying, this ain't going to be as good as you want it to, sorry, but they show something really, really awesome, we've already seen, so it doesn't count, and then they completely lose all momentum, and kill us by showing fucking Black Ops, and other garbage. God of War might be getting co-op, let's talk about that, and everyone sat there going, dude, what are you doing? There are people who will give you 5 minutes of their time, and then you've lost them forever. This is how you're going to open your press conference? By a massive vapid gap after something we already know exists? I was sat there just completely dumbfounded as these people talk about all this great stuff, and then they go to talk about a bunch of shit that had already been announced like a week before E3, and you sat there going, guys, this is 15 minutes into the most important press conference of your fucking year, what is happening? Except for TGS, because everybody loves that shit, the Japanese. And I was dumbfounded. It was the strangest thing. So a guy who comes out and nails it every time, undersells his entire pitch, Then they have a massive interim where they lose all momentum and interest and force Black Ops garbage on us because nobody cares about Black Ops except for Hobo. And then you sat there just being like, what the fuck is going on? Luckily, it just so happens that all these games that Sony are focusing on are absolute bangers. Because if they weren't, this was the worst press conference at this point, because it completely pissed in your face. But then they win you back, don't they? Because that's what they do, you see. They beat you up, but then they call you pretty, and then they say, you know, they love you, and then you think they might have changed. They haven't changed, and that's what this was. You feel like an abusive spouse by the end of this, because we know these games exist, but we're getting more of them, and we remember just how good they're going to be, and then everything is forgotten. So they roll into a feudal Japan setting, and I'm like, oh, please be more of that Sekiro game. Please shit on Microsoft. Please come along and just show me more of that, because I didn't know I wanted it in my life, but I want it in my life. I was the person saying, I don't want another Souls game, and this looks like it might not be another Souls game, but it's kind of close. So I'm okay with that. So I'm dead excited for Sekiro. It's my game of the show. And it's not Sekiro. It's a little bit more meticulous, more methodical, slower, not quite as, you know, From Software-esque. It runs at a decent frame rate. Now, we're hoping that the PC port's going to be great, so don't worry, guys. Sekiro's going to be great. And it's, of course, Ghost of Tsushima, or however you say that. And it looks amazing. It looks like they've nicked Ubisoft's tech and made an Assassin's Creed that's not dog shit. And it's in feudal Japan, and it looks great, and it's got all this stuff going on, and then it goes into some gameplay, and it's quite a controlled environment, but it's showing fire, it's showing all the sword play, it's showing the pagodas, it's showing the cherry blossoms, it's showing everything you need to show to give me the biggest feudal erection. Because you might not know this about me, you might be stumbling upon this video and wondering who this lunatic is who's insulting Sony. I really, really like feudal Japan. It's one of those periods in history that is so romanticized in my memory that that's an area that I want video games to go towards. But traditionally, the games that go that way are kind of shit. I never liked Way of the Samurais and all that series because mechanically the combat sucked dick, and it was more about being a farmer and growing plants, and that was more interesting than being a Ronin, which to me is backwards as shit. But as a young boy, I played Shinobi on the Mega Drive, and all the imagery of the shuriken and jumping on the roofs and those tiled roofs and the early Tenchus and all that kind of stuff. My mind was so immersed in it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all those kind of bits of small and smidgens of Japanese culture, all kind of seeped into there, and I really fell in love with it. I don't even know where it comes from. I don't know where this moment started. And it was compounded with games like Onimusha, which is a fantastic example of that wonderful kind of design and aesthetic. And then there's all the Dynasty Warriors stuff, which, believe it or not, once upon a time, I did like Dynasty Warriors when I was a child. And all of this culminates in me really, really having an affinity for this period. So I'm watching this game, and I'm sold. Like, I need this game in my life. It looks so interesting. And I didn't actually know that it was being developed by Sucker Punch, because I'm stupid. And I think Sucker Punch did Infamous? They did something like that, right? I know the name Sucker Punch, but I associate it with the film of the same name, which is garbage, and I hate that movie. So, for some reason, I have a bit of a stigma against the dev team, even though I know they do good work. And I think it's the Infamous fellas. If it's not, I apologise. But they make good games. So, you know there's quality here. But I'm kind of afraid that the combat wasn't going to be all that great, because I don't have any evidence of this team knowing how to make worthwhile and responsive and good combat. But looking at it, I'm not worried anymore. This game looks awesome. I am going to be doing a specialist video on it where I talk over footage and really go into the shit that I like, that I saw. And I don't have it in front of me now, so I can't really go into mad detail, but it's a day one purchase for me. I'm going to have to get my girlfriend to purchase it for pride reasons, because I refused to give Sony any money after they stole money from me and I couldn't get it back, you bag of cunts. But that's a day one for me. That game looks amazing, and I can't wait. That is better than anything any of the other press conferences have pretty much shown. It's that good in my heart. So I'm dead excited for that, more so than The Last of Us, because I know The Last of Us is going to be good, if not diluted from what they showed. So immediately I'm kind of, okay, Sony, you had a rough start, but we all do. Maybe you tripped at the first hurdle, but you know what? You got back up, didn't you, kid? You did good. And I immediately forgot everything that I hated previously and wondered what they were doing, and I'm sold, I'm hooked, and I'm watching. And they did show new things. So the first thing they showed that was new to me, but maybe not new in the grand scheme of things, was the new Remedy game called Control, and I think this looks awesome. So you're going to hear a bit of a trend here. Once again, I don't know if these games are exclusives. I think this one is, because it mentioned siding with PlayStation after being with Microsoft for so long. But I'm a big Remedy guy. Max Payne is one of those games from my childhood that I fell in love with everything about it, and from that moment onwards I always followed them as a company. They're a Finnish company. I really like Finland, pretty much because of how much I liked Remedy. It was one of those things where it gave me a positive association for a country that I'd never heard of, and then I was super got into the whole, like, all the music from Finland is fucking amazing and all that kind of silliness, but suffice it to say, Remedy make really, really good, really detailed, really focused games, but it takes them a long time to make these games, and the last few that they've made have been great games, but they've not done well enough in the grand scheme of things for whatever reason. Alan Wake was a great game, but it took like 10 years to come out, and it didn't blow everyone away as much as I would have liked it to, even though it was a very solid and a fun game. And then the same thing happened with Quantum Break. Quantum Break was in development for quite a long time, and it came out and it was a good game, but it just didn't quite have that thing that Remedy truly are capable of, but it had all the other stuff that they do, which is the detail and the immersion of the world and the quality and just the precision and that high level of coherency to everything. And I liked it a lot, even though I hated it, which is a strange dichotomy which I could talk about for hours, but there's no time. So I'm a big Remedy guy, and this to me looks like they took all the tech that they'd spent all those years building for Quantum Break, and they put it into a new spin-off game, which is probably going to be a little bit cheaper, a little bit shorter, but it's going to come out a lot sooner. And they did the same thing with the American Nightmare, I think it was called, which was that arcadey follow-up to Alan Wake, which was completely tonally different and much more arcadey, and I had a ton of fun with that. I thought it was a great game. So I'm immediately sold, and I knew that, of course, it was Remedy when it first came on this for two reasons. Firstly, their technology and their engine is very easy to spot if you know what it is, because it's got a great signature aesthetic. But additionally, I think the main girl in Control is the girl who got lost in time in Quantum Break. I think it's the same woman who's doing the capture for it, because I remember her face and I liked her character. She was a good actress, so I'm sold completely. I love Remedy and I love what they do with their games. So I really hope that this is big for them, because judging by the game, it's going to be supernaturally, and you have almost telekinetic powers. It looks like Bioshock. You're picking up shit off the walls and throwing it, and there's this emphasis on the world breaking down with all the crazy distortions and people hanging from the ceiling in zero gravity and stuff. And I'm just hoping that they nail the flow and the balance that really brought Quantum Break down, because my one big fear here is how strong you're going to be. You were so strong in Quantum Break that you were never in danger. Even on the hardest difficulty, even restricting your run, they made you too capable. You were a god from day one to the end of the game, and it made the game a joke to play. It was beautifully designed, It had such a great eye for detail and graphically just majestic, but there was no challenge. So it wasn't even like you were playing a game, it was like you were watching a movie, and then there was the movie parts that just compounded it even more. So it was this weird experience of, you really liked the game, but the game gave nothing back, and it made it feel really hollow. And it made me sad, because I love Remedy, and I waited for that game a long time. So I'm really happy that we get more Remedy, and they get to use all that great technology that they worked on to do something maybe a little different. So I'm stoked, I'm really up for it. And then the next one was another big one. I didn't see this coming. I didn't know what this was when I was watching the trailer. But it was the Resident Evil 2 remake. And Resident Evil 2, if you do not know, was directed by Hideki Kamiya, the man who created Devil May Cry, Beautiful Joe, Okami, so on and so forth. One of my all-time favourite game developers, a man I idolise immensely. This guy is a fucking genius, and he made one of the greatest Resident Evils ever, when Shinji Mikami, the father of Resident Evil, essentially gave him the opportunity to direct the sequel, and that was Resident Evil 2 on the PlayStation 1, right? Way back when. When was that? Like 98? It's a long time ago now. I remember playing this game as a kid, and then later on going back to it. but it's one of the Resident Evils that I've played the least, even though it's one of the Resident Evils I like the most. This is probably my favourite of the traditional tanky control fixed camera angle Resident Evils. Before, of course, the remake came out, but you can't count that, it's too fucking nice. But of the original 3, this was my favourite. And I don't really remember the game too much, so when I was watching it, it was like, oh my god, this looks crazy. And it looks so weird. And I thought my recording device had stopped then, so I was procrastinating on the pause then to double check. Sorry about that. It just looks great. It looks amazing. It looks strange. It looks fascinating. It's got some of the most horrific gore I've seen in a game. It looks really violent. And it's classic Resident Evil, and it's dark. And it's got all the things that I thought they'd lose by switching to the more conventional Resident Evil 4 angle, but it's not. It's kind of retained them. And I'm going to do a focused video on this, because there's like a 21-minute long gameplay footage that's going around on the internet, and I'm going to commentate over that, and we'll watch it together. So I don't want to go into too much, because there's no point. But I saw him swap shoulders, which I'm really happy about, because it's very important, and it's a modern mechanic. But there were two things that really concerned me. I saw no evidence that when you shoot a zombie in a weak point that you can follow up with a context-sensitive melee attack, which is the single greatest innovation in Resident Evil, and the reason why Resident Evil 4 is my favourite. And I would love that to be there, but I think they're going a different way, judging by that defense dagger thing. So that disturbs me a little bit. And also, the reticle on the pistol looked massive. When he used it, it did look quite accurate, so I was kind of assuaged there. But just my gut reaction to seeing that bloody reticle, I was having Kane and Lynch 2 flashbacks. I was not pleased. But you will find all of that out when I cover that video specifically. But suffice to say, it's coming out, I think, January, or it's coming out early next year. Guys, this game looks fucking insane. If you've never played Resident Evil 2, you're in for a treat. This game is so immaculately designed, it's a really great game, and now you get to see it in a way that I would have never imagined, because if it's going to do anything like the original remake, these are actual remakes. These are games you need to play again. They're really, really solid. So I'm very excited for that. And then they showed Kingdom Hearts 3, which always makes me laugh, because didn't they show Kingdom Hearts 3 on Microsoft as well? This thing is getting just horde everywhere. It's crazy. And Kingdom Hearts 3 to me is kind of like Harvey Dent in the movie Dark Knight. He's this poster boy, this flagship of everything that is good about games and about a series. And then gradually over time it's warped and twisted and darkened and deepened and doesn't even recognise itself now, thinking it's the hero, it's actually the villain. And that's kind of how I feel about Kingdom Hearts 3. I really like this series, and it has a very special place in my memory because I was a very young and easily influenced child, and it's left some really meaningful hooks in me. But as I grow older and I play the 9 millionth spin-off that has almost arbitrarily nothing to do with the whole series and just kind of explains where they all got their fucking zippers from, I lose more interest, and I find it difficult to say kind words about Kingdom Hearts 3 because I wasn't impressed by that momentary passage thing. I thought it was terrible, and I kind of know this is going to be good and I know I'm going to like it, but I'm scared. And I'm scared because I have no faith in Square Enix anymore. Square Enix have now become the novelty item at the end of the news. And I just can't get behind it. But it showed Frozen, and the Frozen visuals looked just like the movies, and the game was running, I'm assuming, in engine, so it looked terrific. It showed Tangled, which is really awesome, because I like Tangled a lot, which was really, really cool. And it just showed a little bit more focuses on certain features. One thing that really stood out to me was the Pirates of the Caribbean section where you're going between the boats. That seemed like it was a lot more in-depth than it was in the previous Kingdom Hearts, which I think is a nice direction to go before. But I think it's funny now, this game has taken so long to come out that it probably won't even be voiced by Haley Joel Osment anymore, because he doesn't sound like Sora anymore. He sounds like he looks, which is freakishly ugly, with a hideously tiny face on a huge head. But what a strange thing, right? Sora has this voice that I think of when I think of Sora, but that's because he was like 9, and now he's not 9 anymore. Now he's found heroin, or recovered from finding heroin, or whatever the Macaulay Culkin metamorphosis is, and it's just weird. So I'd love to say great things about Kingdom Hearts, but I can't, guys, because I don't care, even though I do care, and it hurts me to say that, but it's true. And then that leads to everybody's favourite thing, which is Death Stranding. So I'm going to do another focused video on this as well, just because it's Kojima and I do like the man. But what the fuck is this game, seriously? Like, it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in a while. It was so weird. It reminded me of Final Fantasy Spirits Within. It really did. It was a dude, like, using baby juice, fetus power. He was, like, sucking fucking fetus juice out of shit like Christopher Reeves. And he's climbing mountains and delivering mundane garbage, so it's some kind of... Maybe it's a remaking of Kevin Costner's The Postman. Like, he's climbing mountains with rucksacks on, and there's all these people who are actually people who've been performance captured with very beautiful graphics, and Norman Reedus looks fantastic, and then there's this other woman he talks to, and like he's walking, and he's doing a lot of walking, and it's making me feel like Bear Grylls. And then, like, he gets attacked by invisible Spirit Within shit, and then they're all, like, on mannequin strings. I don't know what's going on. I've got faith, though. Kojima makes interesting games, so at least it'll be something, right? But to look at it, it's just... I can't get over the... Stranding's not a word. It bugs me that they use that word. And I'm assuming it's got something to do with the strands, and the strands are probably some kind of metaphor for lifelines, or ley lines, or I don't even know, umbilical cords, but I'm almost certain stranding is not a word. And if it is a word, I want it removed. I want the dictionary to rip it out, piss on it, set it on fire, and bury it, because I really dislike that word. It sounds like a Japanese mistranslation of the word standing, but it's fascinating because nobody really knows what it is, and when you don't know what it is, it makes it exciting. So we're going to look back right now on this vague and crazy trailer and know everything about it and understand it completely, but right now we get to be innocent and ignorant, and there's a beauty to that. So as much as I think it looks stupid, and there's no real gameplay shown so far that looks anything other than tedious, I still think it's probably going to be a great game. I don't even know why. Hideo Kojima, you know, his workflow and his portfolio speak for itself. As much as it's easy to shit on Metal Gears, those games are amazing, and I think that this could be just as good. And then Sony closed with an interesting game, which is Spider-Man. I was really surprised that they closed with this, because I don't look at this game like everybody else does. Everybody else is super stoked for this, but everything I've seen has looked incredibly mundane. Until now. I watched this trailer, and as much as, you know, I'm still not going to be jumping up and down for the title, I can kind of see the appeal now. They showed what looked like gameplay, and a lot more interaction and less cinematic-y nonsense. It looked like there was a person in control of the events, and it wasn't just a sequence of QuickTime events. So from what I saw, it could be really interesting. The part that really got me excited and made me go like, oh wow, this, you know, maybe there's something to this, was when he was juggling the enemies. So it seems like the combat is not going to be completely Arkham rip-off. It will probably have some rhythm to it and have some, you know, fast-flowing movement and everything, but he was knocking them up and then chasing them up and doing all kinds of interactive environment interactions, and it seems like there's quite a breadth to it. So if the combat is as interesting as they made it look, it could be really, really fun. And I'm finally getting to the point where I can start getting excited about the game, because the caliber of the studio making it is on par with the best in the world. They are capable, creative people, but it just didn't give me anything when I watched it previously, so I was really happy to see with all the villains that they introduced and some of the flow of the game. It looked a lot less like something that had been prepared for a conference, and a lot more like something that players are going to be able to get their hands on and have a similar effect. So it's gone from being bullshot to a video game in my mind, and I think it looks interesting. So I'm pleasantly surprised. And that was the end of Sony, guys. A press conference that started horrendously with some just almost like suicidal design choices. 100% self-destructive, you know, just completely betraying the want of success. I was so worried and so just boggled by how they chose to deliver it, and I still don't understand what it was about, and I haven't had a chance to look to see if anyone else agrees with me or anyone else felt the same, because I've not had a chance to look. I'm completely in the dark. I've had a week away from the internet when the most important part of the gaming year happened. So, it's crazy, right? It is crazy to me. So I just don't know. But to me, I feel like Sony shit the bed, but they did a really, really good way of recovering it, because as much as they didn't have much to show in as far as 56 exclusives, which none of them are exclusive, I'm just full of shit, Mr. Spencer, everything they showed was dynamite. Every single one is something you're going to buy. It's a list of games you're going to buy, and admittedly, if some of those are on all consoles, but the ones that aren't, your Last of Us, your Ghost of Tsushima's, your something else, it's Control, sorry, spot on, right? So spot on. And of course, they have the best machine right now, in my opinion. I think that's objective. It's not the most powerful, but it's the one that is promising the most and giving the most promise. So I feel like Sony faltered, but showed what they have. They showed their cards, and their cards are magnificent. And it's just continuing to compound this pre-existing issue that Sony has all these exclusives and Microsoft don't. But what did you think, guys? Thank you very much for watching, and you take care now.